Well, now I'd like to turn to Chris Course, who's the host for the My Bill. And I understand Chris has quite a few people for us this evening. And before we turn to Chris, I'd like to run the sponsor video for this segment of our show. Dan Daugherty's company, Model Resource, LLC.
Welcome to the world of scale, O&S railroading. We are your resource for all O&S scale modeling. Both our magazines are advertiser supported and free to read online, download as a PDF, or even print. All advertisers are hot linked to their website, so if you see something you like, just click.
Thank you so much, Pat, Phil. Now I want to turn to Chris Course, who is the host for the My Bill, to see what he has for us this evening. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. We're trying something a little different here tonight. I've got my second, I got a new laptop about a month ago, and I'm trying to transition from one to the other. So I've got both going. We'll see how it works. All right. Welcome to this month's edition of My Build. It is November 22nd. And of course, it is featuring you. This month, it's a free for all. And next month is a holiday theme, but we'll get to that at the end. And I'm your host, Chris Course. First up, we've got Martin. Martin, you're back.
That's why I didn't leave.
I know. All right. Looks like we've got a bunch of slides from you.
Well, okay, so it's that set of slides.
Yep. Yeah, the one you sent me.
Well, you asked, yeah, you asked for more trouble, so I gave it to you.
Okay.
So yeah, there's those. So there's one of those. Gosh, there's one of those K-brake truss rod underbodies. Fancy that! How shocking. But it's also got some other stuff on the sides. Stake pockets. There are some sides. Whoop. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, I thought you said next.
Yeah, go ahead. There's a couple of sides. They're board by board sides and windows that were board by board sticks. Just build them up flat. There's the end. Same story. Yeah, you'll see that the framing for those are on the inside. Go on to the next one. And putting those sides and ends at one end, two sides, that body together, and some heavy duty rafter trusses to hold it all together. And they literally do hold it all together. There's not much else holding this thing together. A little glue at the bottom and the rafters are what hold it all together. Okay, and you can see there's all the 2x4s or 3x4s, or I'm not sure which I used, on the inside for the framing around the windows and all up and down the sides. I didn't bother to put the truss rods into the walls. It's more trouble than I wanted to get into on this car, at least. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And the roof is on. It's board by board, sticks and sticks and more sticks and more sticks. I have too many sticks in my shop. It's the only way I know how to get rid of them is to use them up. And the next slide. Well, and we put some scribe siding on top of the sticks. So that was the inner roof. This is the outer roof that gets exposed to the weather. And you can see there's sides over on the other, in those stake pockets now. And some more details are added on. There's some stirrup steps at the one end there and some other odds ends. And we just go on to the next slide. Yeah, so there's, you see these three sections of the going into the stake pockets, the sides. These are all individual boards. Lots and lots and lots of little holes and lots of nut, bolt, and washer castings inside and outside. So this is what you do when you're really obsessive compulsive and have too much time in your hands and you forget it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you still have tweezers in your hands, putting in nut, bolt, and washer castings. It helps to have a little drill press for doing that. You can drill them by hand if you want to, but that seems to induce carpal tunnel issues. So at least it does in me. And so I use my variable speed miniature drill press and just slide the whole section underneath of it and just bang out all the holes and grind it all into shape, so I can just stick the little castings in place, inserting them all, dip them in a little bit of CA into the hole from both sides. Okay, and there's what you end up after you put a bunch of details on it. That little crane's actually a Tichy product, which I was reading about, and they said it was too small for O scale. And I thought, well, that's just perfect for this car. I don't need a big honking monster crane. I need something, a little chain hoist that'll work just fine on this car. Lots of little castings. Some of them are commercial, some are mine. Lots of little pieces and bits and stuff. And uh, let's swing it around to the other next photo because there you go. Well, you can see better from that side. Yeah, and the windows were glazed. Foolishly, I forgot to glaze the windows before I put the roof on. But it's sort of one of those things you don't want to do before you paint it, or you want to do it, because you'll get paint all over the glazing. So glazing the windows was interesting, an adventure with long tweezers and forceps and acetate with adhesive on it, sticking it all the way, and the back windows glazed as well. So we've got 5 inches of wandering through the car with a sticky piece of acetate, hoping to hit the hole properly in the window. And much colorful language ensued, but it was done. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, you got the view from the other side. Okay, you can't really see from this side what I was going to say. Oh, well. Oh, well. Next slide. We'll just go right along. Okay, maybe that's better. That's a better slide. So we've got a pipe rack on the inside. I was trying to get rid of pipe. That seems to be a theme in my life, getting rid of pipe and all kinds of other castings. There's a tool workbench in there and a man and his dog. There's always room for a boy and his dog. I highly recommend the movie, by the way, and the book. So, but there's a workbench in there, and that workbench is actually removable. And I think you'll see on the next slide. No? Well, there you can see better. It actually shows what I was going to talk about. So there's lots and lots of tools in that that workbench and odds and ends. You can see actually hanging over there by the pipe rack. It must have been rain in the forecast because there's also an umbrella on a hook. Prepare for everything. Bring your umbrella to work. But you can see in the window the silhouette of a lantern from the inside. When I was building this, someone was saying, you can't put that there, it'll fall off. And I said, well, I want it to be there because you'll see it through the window. And if you go to the next slide,
There it is.
there's the tool bench, and there's the lantern. So that little cutaway holds the lantern right in front of the window so it can be seen from the inside and out. And we have saws, hammers, there's a whole array of wrenches and screwdrivers and all kinds of stuff hanging back there. If I had, maybe the next picture has a better light. Oh, there you go. So we got wrenches and clamps and adjustable wrenches and hammers and all kinds of fun tools, just what everybody needs. And there you go. Some code 125 rail underneath it just for ballast.
That's a whole model all in itself.
That was fun to build. And it's removable still. So, I have to be careful when I take this model, move this model around. Things, this can get dislodged a little bit. So I have to look through the window, make sure the lantern's in the right location.
Make sure the tools don't fall off.
Yep. Okay. Well, I believe that's the last.
There we go.
Oh,
There's
there it is.
There you go. There's your shot. No problem.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah, and I broke that and I left it broken. The little window shade. I thought, things get broken and they just kind of hang around, and I think that just adds a little more character, and it also keeps the rain falling off to the other side.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's a good rain gutter of sorts.
Yeah, it serves a dual purpose in this case. It's things get broken up and messed up, and and then there's stuff here. There's an extra step there. I had some extra large white metal cast nut bolt washers, so they're on the sides there. I mean, there's all kinds of leftovers and odds and ends. I keep a box of odds and ends sitting on the bench, and actually 2 or 3 trays of them. And every now and then I was like, I'm building something, I peruse the boxes and think, oh yeah, I could stick this in this car. It'll go away here and it'll take up this little square inch and be nice.
I like the water stain next to the climbing ladder.
Yeah, that's a little bit of probably a little bit of Minwax actually. Just came out of the staining of the car.
Looks great.
And I in fact, before I painted it, I actually did take a large brush, large brush being like a 1/2 inch brush, with Minwax, my Minwax mixture. I just slopped it all over the inside of the car. And I
Wow.
said, man, we just got to cover everything and make a good mess and slop it everywhere. And a little bit came out the outside on that end. I like, that's okay. We can leave that there.
Looks
A
good.
little future roofing issue to be dealt with.
Looks good, Martin.
And I think that's the last slide, I hope.
Yes, it is.
There you go.
All righty. Awesome job as usual, Martin. Are there any questions for Martin before we move on? All righty. Well, thanks again, Martin.
All
Happy
right.
Thanksgiving.
We'll see you next week then.
All righty then. Next up, we've got Tony Dixon. You up, Tony? Tony, are you up? All right.
I don't think he's here.
Okay. Yeah, he sent a bunch of slides. He was redoing I'm not good on diesel locomotives, but he was repainting this one. This is that a SD 44? Is that what that is? I don't know. But and also the he was building the car that goes behind it. So that's what he started out with some modifications to it. And you can see, I believe this is S scale.
Yes, it is.
And as you can see, he added tons of details to it. Even more. And that's what he painted it with for factory colors. And then came the Weatherman, as you can see. And then now here we have the car that went behind it. Does anybody know what type of car this is? I thought I didn't put it in my notes. This Tony's usually up. But it looks like it's a
Chris, it could be one of those training cars with all the different hatches they use for training.
Oh, okay. As you can see, he built it from scratch. He did a fantastic job with it. I mean, I would have no idea that was not a kit or something that rolled out of a factory. I mean, that is just a fantastic job on that car. And it looks like we're getting towards the end here. There's some finished photos. Is that a fire car, maybe?
Yeah, it's a training session.
Oh, okay. All righty. Well, Tony, you did a fantastic job. Thanks for sending the slides in. And I'm sorry I didn't copy the information down like I should have. But all right, next up we have Bernd Fang Hanel.
Yeah, very good.
All right.
Get an A for effort.
I know. I was trying to. I when you sent me how to pronounce it, I practiced it a couple of times, and it was like, man, I hope I remember that. Then I'm like,
All right.
Okay, so it looks like you've got 4 slides. I think I combined some stuff on yours.
5.
Okay.
Okay, there's a Sodom kit that I added some extra interior stuff and the windows. I didn't like the windows because they're acetate and they got these lines on them, and I don't know, it just didn't appeal to me, so it wasn't going to work. So on to the next one. Okay, I built one to see if I could do this or not, and the window's made from 20 pieces of phosphor bronze, 32 thousandths diameter. There's 32 solder joints together that I did in a jig that I made for it. It took 28 seconds to solder the 38 joints with a propane torch. There's a technique to this that is pretty interesting. So okay, on to the next one. I cut these out. I cut the window frames out from on my CNC tabletop router engraver, and the brass is 10 thousandths thick,
which simulates a 1-inch thick frame, and it's 32 thousandths wide, which simulates close to a 3-inch wide frame. So, okay, on to the next one. Oops, one back. Oh, okay, you got two of them together there. There are 12 windows in this kit. And there's 20 pieces per window, 12 windows, so there's 240 pieces on and there's 16 panes per window with 192 panes. 32 solder joints for each window, so that's 456 solder joints on those windows. It was all done in a jig, and it didn't take very long to do in a jig when you can get everything together like that. So, and the end result will be the last picture. Okay, pop over the last one.
Yep, there we go. No,
And that's the finished windows, and they're installed. Each window pane has its own individual piece of clear styrene glued into with canopy glue. So I would have more, but I didn't know how many you wanted. You said it wanted about 5. The whole interior, what I did is I framed it in wood to make it look like there's purlins and everything inside. It's not a full interior. And I also did some different stuff for the kit. They give you angle pieces to solder the ends and stuff together. I made my own out of brass. So, and the next project is I'm going to make a 4-stall using two of these Sudom kits to make a 4-stall engine house with working doors on it. When that's going to happen, I don't know. So that's all I have for you tonight.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Sudom kits are, you see a lot of them around. They go dirt cheap because you open up the box and go, oh, wow, okay.
Well, a lot of people are afraid to solder. I'm not. I like soldering. My dad taught me when I was 3 years old. I discovered how hot the end of a soldering tip is. I burned my finger, but my dad taught me a lot of stuff, machining and stuff like that. So this is kind of my interest using, I work with a lot of brass and stuff like that. So something different to do.
Yeah, I know. I've seen your stuff on Facebook, and it's fantastic. Does anyone have any questions for Bern before we move on?
Vern, what thickness brass do you like to work with?
Well, it depends on what I do. Like, for example, the windows are only 10 thousandths thick. I didn't want it to make them real thick. Anywhere from the shim stock, which is 1 to 5 thousandths thick, to all the way up to 1/4 inch and stuff like that. I've scratch built some little critters that probably would be of interest to the group sometime if I put something together for that. So you can see the different stuff that I do. The little rail truck down there is an HO-130. I've got a trailer behind it. I'm going to be doing an article for another newspaper on that. This is going to be battery powered and radio controlled. So that's another one of my interests, is battery power and using radio control instead of DCC.
Or what kind of soldering iron do you use?
I built my own resistance soldering rig using a microwave transformer out of a microwave that died. It's real easy to do when you understand a little bit about the electrics of it.
Yeah. Beautiful modeling, it really is.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Any questions for Bern before we move on?
Vern, I hope that you will send me an email if you get a chance to Jim Kello at newtraxmodeling.com, because I'd love to set up some time for you to come on the show and show us some of your modeling and soldering techniques.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for sharing, and happy Thanksgiving.
Same to everybody else. Thank you.
All righty. All right, Jeff Jordan.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are. All right. Yeah, yours was kind of simple, so I combined it into one slide.
Yep, that's fine. I like them side by side. There's a quick preview of coming attractions that, as you may recall from previous presentations, my club is in the process of participating in the reconstruction of the historic B&O depot that once stood in Middletown, Virginia. And that's a photograph of the depot taken about 1915. And as part of the fundraising efforts, they said, we need a model of the station. And they asked me if I could do one and do one relatively quickly. And so I decided rather than to try and build it from scratch, I would hunt until I found a kit that was a close approximation and modify it to make it look like the Middletown Depot. And so the upper left photo there is my finished Middletown Depot posed to see how close I got to the original photograph. Next month, I will actually be doing a presentation on how I modified the kit and all the modifications. You can't appreciate from this what the stock kit would have looked like had it not had all the modifications that I made to make it resemble the building, including changing the height, changing the width, adding all the trim, modifying the roof line, and several other things. And so that'll all be in my presentation next month on how I did it. But as a little bit of a teaser and get people to tune in, here's the finished Middletown Depot model. Started life as an Altoona Model Works small town depot.
Altoona Model Works. What was the name of that?
That's going to be a great model.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the kit is Altoona Model Works. Yep. And they have a nice kit of a small town depot, which I recognized as being close, but not identical to the original. And that's the whole knack of my presentation, was all the alterations I made to this kit to bring it much closer to the original prototype. And this one, unlike my previous efforts, everything you see there, except for the signboards, is made out of wood. I just created a couple little signs out of styrene, but everything else, the structure, body, the siding, the trim, you name it, the deck is all wood this time.
And this is O scale?
This is O scale.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, the ultimate objective is probably this is going to go into the mayor's office and to help in his fundraising pitches. We've been raising money to rebuild the depot. Our ultimate goal is $200,000, and we're at about $168,000 right now. Some very generous contributions from area businesses, but the mayor is making pitches, and he said it would be helpful if he could have a model to show people what it would look like when it was finished. And so O scale was a natural because there was a kit available, and it obviously shows it's bigger when you're trying to show it to people. The track, however, right now, sitting in front of it is HO track because that's all I had on hand. It should be O scale track, and I recently acquired a length of O scale track, and so it was a standard gauge depot, not a narrow gauge depot. So it'll have some standard gauge track in front of it when it's done.
Alrighty. Yeah, it's funny. I was approached at Timonium about building a model for Sykesville because they're trying to do the same thing. And I had the guy send me an email, and I never got it, so I don't know if he put in the wrong email address or what. But anyway, so those efforts are out there to rebuild these old depots. I think that's really neat. It's you see repurposed depots all the time, and there had to be a lot of care and effort that went into bringing those back. So
this currently is a vacant lot and will be rebuilt, from the ground up. And the feature is, of course, that the mayor of Middletown has been the moving factor. They acquired a tract of land just inside the town that was slated for development, and they didn't want houses built in this section of Middletown. So the town acquired the land, made it into a park, and then wants to put the historic depot back on the property, and then will lease it on a long-term basis to the Model Railroad Club which will both build a new layout, and we'll also have a room that will be a museum, and we'll have railroad artifacts.
Wow, very cool.
And we actually have builders' plans for it now, and we're hoping that before the year is out, they'll start clearing the lot.
Wow, awesome. Glad to see that that there are efforts under afoot that are headed in that direction. That's fantastic.
We're really excited. Thank you.
All righty. Are there any questions for Jeff before we move on? All righty. Well, thanks, Jeff, and have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Same to you, everyone.
All right. Next up, Mitch Lovelace. Are you up, Mitch? Okay.
He's not here.
Okay. Yeah, he's not usually, he usually works on at night, but all right. I know that this is N scale. He's
Hey,
been
I'm
working-
here.
Oh, you are. There you are. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm here. I just didn't know that I sent you anything.
Yeah, it was like right after last month. I was like, wow, that's quick.
Oh, you're talking about the box car. Yeah. That I weathered up. Yeah, in HO
Yep.
scale. Yeah.
Oh, it is HO.
Okay.
All right. I thought it was your usual N scale. All right. So what can you tell us about your box car here?
Basically, I just bought it used in a giant lot of HO scale box cars for the purpose of just getting good at or practicing weathering. Just because I'm so new to the hobby, I know next to nothing about it other than YouTube college and watching all the videos from you guys. So I used on that. They have a standard rust color as AK. They have a crusted rust deposits brand acrylics. And so I just took my time with it and tried to make it as filthy as possible. But other than that, I don't know. I guess that's about all I can tell you, unless you have a.
Very nicely done.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. I like the rusting on the towards the bottom there, where it looks like it's been kind of bowed out from being beaten on the inside.
You'd need a tetanus shot to walk past it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but I apologize about the trucks and the wheels. The trucks and the wheels came on that particular box car as plastic, so they were not taking the paint very well. And I have some new wheels and metal wheels and new trucks and everything ordered for it, but they're not in the mail yet from what I looked last time I looked. But yeah, so they don't look too great, and I know that. But I was basically just trying to figure out the techniques on the box car itself.
Yeah, it's a fantastic first step. One thing you could do, if I see what you're running into with those wheels, try like a if I could talk, like a coat of dull coat on there, or I know there's other companies that make clear flats. You could try that, and I think it would probably take the paint better. I do have, I think, one more photo for you. Actually, you've got, wait a minute, 3 photos total. So here's a second photo.
Yeah, I've got that all over the entire model.
Really? Okay. And it's still not doing what you want?
I think it looks great.
I do
Yeah.
too. I do too.
Yep. Mitch, you still with us?
I think we lost.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So you got this photo, and then there's one more. All right. Looks like there's
Mitch, I congratulate you on being willing to try to learn the techniques on the boxcar.
Okay.
A lot of people wouldn't even try to do that, so congratulations. Trying is half the battle.
Yep. Yeah, and you're not afraid to put your stuff out there and say, "Hey, what do you guys think?" So that's I'll applaud you on that a lot. That's exactly what we're looking for.
That's what this is all about, Mitch. And I just hope more people will do that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. We're going to like this to N scale though.
How do you equate it to N scale?
Use a
Yeah, I
very
was saying
small
more
brush.
N scale though. I'm kind of worried about that. Yeah, and probably every curse word in the book as well.
Nicely done. Nicely.
All right. And there's the last one. It just shows the end. That's probably what you started with, I assume. Are there any questions for Mitch before we move on?
How did he do that again?
He's using AK. Looks like they've got a crusted rust deposits. They've got an AK line of rust, and he's just looks like he was just trying different techniques on that, which I think it came out great.
I do too.
Fantastic job on that. As you can see what he started with. That's just an end that he hasn't touched yet, but yeah, you definitely need a tetanus shot for those. You still with us, Mitch?
Still breaking up.
Alrighty. Are there any questions for Mitch before we move on?
Great job.
Yeah, great job, Mitch. Thanks for sharing. And happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week.
Happy Thanksgiving to you guys.
Alrighty. Next up, Alan Rogers. Yep, Alan.
Good evening, everybody.
All right, looks like you've got 4 slides. I think I combined a few of them.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. This is a little bit of family history. This is my great-grandmother on my mother's side. She was born in 1880, and she died in 1960. So she actually died when I was about 9.5 months old. So she got to hold me a time or two before she died. The left-hand picture is her picture is in the upper right-hand corner of that left-hand picture. And you can see it's quite a large family. And if you want to go to the next slide, Chris, this is her parental home. And the upper left-hand picture, it's probably about the 1920s from the looks of the uniforms there, clothing, if you will. Would somebody mute Doc, please? We're there we go. Thank you. Anyway, that was located in Elvira in Johnson County in Southern Illinois. And I have some relatives in Kansas that went through there recently. And they say that it's a vacant lot now, or there's a store there. So that house is long gone. But the lower right-hand corner is my rendition of it. So I believe originally the house was just the left-hand part with the windows facing us. And as the children came along, I believe they added that dormitory on the right-hand side. It looks like there was a room for the girls and a room for the boys. So that's my great-grandmother's childhood home. So we can go to the next slide if you want, Chris.
All right. And is that a scratch build, or is that one of your kids?
I scratch built all of that. Okay.
Take it to an O scale.
Are you going to offer that as a kit, Alan?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if people ask for it, I will, but it's really not that a spectacular a house. It was just an old farmhouse. And I mean,
Yeah.
if people want it, of course, but I haven't been asked to. So now I wanted to talk about Campbell Scale Models, which started in the early 60s, and it just closed last year after being sold a time or two. And basically, when you built one of their HO scale kits, you got a box with a bunch of bags full of little pieces of wood in it. And I believe that required quite a lot of scratch building skills. So I bought this kit off of eBay because my dad bought me one of these kits back in the 60s when I was a kid, and the kit was lost. So this kit replaces the one he bought me. I turned around and rendered it in O scale on the right-hand side. So I scratch built the O scale model that you're looking at, and ran out in the country a couple of weeks ago and photographed it out there at my favorite photography place for my models. So tell you though, it's not a very pretty model. I can tell you that it's accurate, but it reminds me of this comedian back in the 80s that used to talk about something being ugly, and she would say, "It was ugly, honey, ugly." And that's the way this kid is. So actually, it's not a kid, it's my model. But Campbell Scale Models, I hated to see them go out of business. But, you know, in retrospect, the way we try to design kits today for people, I don't think most of the people that buy our kits would want to even try something like this when you're looking at. So to be real honest with you, I'm a little bit surprised they were in business as long as they were, because they didn't really move forward with easier to build kits later. But that's about it. Thank you very much, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
I think there's more. Yep, there we go. More photos of your build there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that came out fantastic. I would not have thought that was a scratch build. It did a great job with it.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from Alan before we move on?
Did you use the blueprints from the Campbell kit to do that, Al?
I sure did. They were actually very helpful. I didn't have to really measure very many of the HO scale components and size them up to O scale. They did write really good instructions.
Great job.
Thank you.
I don't think it's ugly at all.
Yeah, that is very well done.
Yeah, I do too.
By the way, the prototype is at our Kern County Museum over here, about 5 miles from my house. So I didn't even go out there to see the real thing. I just used the drawings from Campbell to render it.
Nice.
Alan, did you eventually build the HO kit from Campbell, or do you still have it in the box?
I've still got it in the box. I'm preserving it with my other kit collections. By the way, Doc wanted to know what scale this is. It's O scale.
Yeah.
My rendering is O scale, Doc. Thank you, everybody, for your compliments.
All righty, any more questions for Alan? All right, well, thank you, Alan, and happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you next week.
Happy Thanksgiving to you guys.
All right, next up, we've got Gary Shergold. Yep, Gary.
I'm here.
There we go. Looks like you've got 3 slides. I think I consolidated a couple of yours down.
That'd be great. Yeah, these are Jordan buggies. They're for a little break. What I do is I break away from my modeling projects and go into the Jordan kits, and I start building these just for something a little different. Putting the horses together is quite nice. They come in 2 parts. You glue them together. You have to do a little bit of carving on them to make the legs and body come together more realistically. But I put these together using two different paint techniques on each one. There was actually 4 of these done. These are the first 2 with the one technique. The horses are a base color put on, and then multiple shadings done to the horse. And then the leather work all done in a leather color. And then the reins hooked up to the whip up by the seat. The next set. Now, these are the others that I had done, trying a different coloring technique on the carriages. Same idea with the horses, come in 2 parts, a little bit of carving, and then they're painted a base color, and then different shadings put on to just give that effect that the horse isn't all one color. And the wagons done up with the wheels. The metal strapping on the wheels is done with a number 2 HO pencil, just to give it that shiny metal look. Should be another one, Chris.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the buck wagon, delivery wagon. Done basically the same way. It was done up in a dark green. Some crates and items put in the back that he's delivering. I put a driver up on it. The figure that's on there, it was pretty interesting because it's actually 6 parts to put that little figure together. I put them together, painted them up. Same technique with the horses. I do a base color and then some touch-ups here and there, just to give that difference, so the horses don't look all one solid color. These are fun little projects. I like doing them because it just gives me a break. They're highly detailed and they make really nice models. And that's it for me, Chris.
Yeah, they came out really nice.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Gary?
Great job, Gary.
I think they're beautiful. I really like them. I really do.
Yeah, I was just looking at my Jordan kits. Every time I open them up, I'm like, and I put them back.
You know, that could be almost a hobby within a hobby, couldn't it, Gary?
Yeah, like it's really sad that the company is gone because these are really beautiful kits.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, like I've over the years I've collected a lot of Jordan kits, and I have number 1, which is still in the bag, and it came in a little beige color envelope, and it's made of plastic and cardboard, but I have not put it together yet.
Who owns it? Who owns it now? Do you know?
Nobody. From my understanding, the gentleman, the son that ran it after his father passed, when he passed, he put in the will that the dies would be destroyed. And I think there was a couple of companies that tried to buy the dies, but the family wouldn't sell them. So as far as I know, everything is gone.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Which is a shame because they are beautiful models.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing them.
Thank you.
Fantastic job. All right. Any more questions for Gary before we move on?
Just one question. Did you say you used like an HB pencil on the rims of the wheels?
Yes, number 2, soft.
Okay, thank
And
you.
then what I do, I paint the wheels first. And then also on the nuts and bolts that hold the wheels on, I just take a pencil, and I don't use the tip. I use it on the side, and then just rub around the wheels. And what that'll do, it'll put a nice coating, and it actually looks like the steel frame that is around the wheel, and gives it that metal worn effect.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, no, they look great.
Thank
Do
you.
you do anything, do you hit it with like a spray flat or anything to keep it from coming off?
Oh, it won't come off. Well, if you rubbed it hard enough, it probably would.
Oh, okay.
I've never flat coated it, like dull
Okay.
coat or anything.
So it's different than a regular pencil.
No, it's a regular pencil, just a number 2 soft.
I think what he's trying to say is the graphite does the job of shining it up for you.
Yes,
Pop the pencil.
yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just remember every time I mess with a lot of pencil work, it ends up all over my hands. But
Yeah, I've also used it on plastic models for the grills that are on
Mhm.
top of different cars. If you just very lightly with the tip of the pencil go over that, it'll give it that metal look.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really neat technique. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
All righty. Any more questions for Gary? All righty. Well, I know you guys in Canada have a different Thanksgiving, but I will wish you happy Thanksgiving anyway.
And Thanksgiving to all you.
And we will see you next week. Thanks very much, Gary.
Thank you.
Next up is Bill Stimson. You up, Bill?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Looks like you've got 5 slides.
Yeah, they're probably pretty big pictures.
Yeah, I tried to arrange them a little bit differently to put them in a more logical order, but I'm not sure I accomplished that. So I apologize.
It's fine. So this is an old Jack Work model railroad article that I decided. I had this sign Campbell Express and I was trying to figure out what to do with it. And so I scratch built this based on Jack Work's article, although I also shortened the deck. This deck went out another 20 feet in his drawing. So I decided I didn't like that uncovered deck for this building. So you can see how small it is. This is a building that I took to our regional convention or our division meet. I'm sorry. This one I took to a division meet and it was fairly well thought of.
Nice looking model. Really is.
Yep.
And you can see by the penny, this is all N scale.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think there's one more picture of the building.
Yeah, there's actually 2 more pages.
Yep. This is the other side of that.
That is nice.
Yep.
This, speaking of Campbell, this is Campbell shingles on the roof.
Huh.
I stumbled on a roll about 6 inches in diameter at a swap meet and bought it immediately.
Huh.
So
That's hard for me to believe in scale. That really is nice.
Yeah.
thank you. You want to go into the next building? Yeah. This is I've stumbled across a FSM kit of Barnstead's lumber that just had the box and the instructions for like $5 at a swap meet. And so I took the instructions and stuff and I built this in N scale using Celios's instructions. Changed a few things. Obviously, I don't have his stuff. These are all Tichy windows, but the doors are all scratch built. And the shed over on the right-hand photo is board on board construction in N scale. So,
So what width of strip wood do you use for that?
I used HO 2x2s to do the 2x4 framing, and then HO 1x4s for the wood.
Okay.
And I mixed in some 1x3s every once in a while. I bought a whole bunch of stuff from I think it was Northeastern, that they were all dimensional lumber, but a HO dimensional lumber that I could use.
What you use for the roof?
That's just I think on that one, that's just a piece of construction paper that's been painted over, and
Yep.
the roof on the main building, I think, came from Monroe Models. They have some shingles. Well, I see it separating. I didn't notice that. I'd have glued that back down. This one I presented at the regional convention in June, and also well received.
Yeah, it looks very well detailed, especially for N scale. Holy mackerel.
Well, I sure appreciate you showing them and sharing them with us. That's really, like Chris said, it's just hard to believe that's in scale.
I think there's one more of the side of it.
That's the whole
Oh, the top one, that's right.
complete overview.
And you can see the penny, so you see how small this is.
Yeah.
The
I
penny
have
looks
trouble
like
in
a
L
scale.
scale. That's great for N scale.
I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, wow.
Thank you.
All right. And I think there might be, yep, there we go. One more.
One from the end view.
Yep. Kind of a fitting end shot. All right. Are there any questions for Bill? Okay. Well, thanks for sharing, Bill. This is fantastic stuff you've got here, and we thank you for sharing it. And we will wish you a happy Thanksgiving and see you next week.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, James Taverna. Yep, James. There we go. All right. Looks like you've got 7 slides here, because I did consolidate yours down a little bit.
Yeah, the purpose for my showing this is for 2 reasons. One is I wanted to show what you could do with a 1970 era Japanese import from U.S. Hobbies, as this is a 90 F-82 tender that would be on the Pennsylvania Railroad behind an I-1. And so the goal was to update it to current detail levels, because I also upgraded the engine. And Jim had challenged me to put together a presentation for the group on how to use dry transfers. And I realized that the only application I have right now to do a dry transfer is on a tender. So I had to get this tender ready by finishing it and painting it, so I could then put the presentation together and tell Jim I'm ready to go. So anyway, so this is a rather plain brass tender as it came. And so as you see the back sheet of the coal area, I made an applique there such that I could rivet. There were heavy rivets in the back that supported it, along with 2 side braces. And then I put in some precision cast brass hand grabs that they had going up the side. You'll see a hole in the deck of the tender and an outline, and that's where I'm putting there was a doghouse that goes on the back. And so I took it off to be able to show a better view of what I had done in the very back of the tender. And you'll see a later shot, if you kept it in, Chris, of the doghouse when it was painted. In the front of the tender, there was absolutely no detail on the water legs and so forth, and there should be valves and so forth. So I added the valves on both sides, plus also a brake shaft that was there for the brakes on the tender. And this is all solder work, like Bernard was talking about. I use resistance soldering. I also have a soldering iron, and in a couple places I'll show you later, I used a torch. So go to the next slide.
What scale is this?
This is O scale.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And so to give you a contrast, the tender on the left is the one that I'm preparing for Jim's presentation. The tender on the right is a stock tender that I've already started making modifications to, and I wanted to give the comparison so you can see where we essentially were starting and where we are now. So in the two tenders, you'll see I have the applique up on both, so that's completed. They had the hatch in the wrong place, so I had to make on my lathe. I made some fillers that went in from the bottom because the holes were rather large, and soldered them in with the resistance soldering. And then I used some body putty to make sure everything was nicely closed up. And as you look at the one on the left, you can see that I've further sanded that down, and to make it down to the absolute bare minimum of body putty. And then the next thing I had to do was I had to add the lanterns on the back of the tender, make the platforms, put the lanterns, and get those in. The hatch is a custom hatch that was made by a fellow called Steve Grabowski. And so I have a supply of those, and that's what I used the torch. I just heated the hatch because it's a mass of brass, and soldered that to the deck of the tender in the right location. When I say the right location, I have the actual blueprints for the tender from the Pennsylvania Railroad's archives. The drains on the deck of the tender you can see on either side of the hatch. Those I salvaged from a Sunset tender that I changed to a different type of a drain on their big welded tenders, and I was able to use those spider traps alongside the hatch on this tender. Forward of the traps, you'll see lift rings that were also added to the back of the tender because the Pennsy had that as a standard appliance, so they could easily lift the tenders. Then in the back of the tender, we had to go in and put in the electrical piping and a special fixture with a standoff junction box that goes there, and some small clamps that I had made up and cast for me to hold the piping in place, the conduit, and that goes up to the lanterns on the back. And then I have again another custom casting that I've had made for me that from a master, and that's the backup light with the big they called them an ash can headlight on the back of the tender in its appropriate location. And you can see the hole in the tender on the right where the original tender had a really crappy light casting, and I used that hole for the mount for this headlight and soldered from underneath. So we can go to the next set of showing you a closer look of how I did the electrical work, and in the one that is not as complete, you got to see a close up. And then here's the wires that I used 20 thousandths wire, brass wire that I bent to shape and then put it through the clamps and into the junction box, and that goes up into the feed into the bottom of the lanterns. And so, and also the Pennsy used a classification system by putting plates on the back of their tenders. And so those are custom made. There was a fellow who had a business making these class plates for the various classes of tenders and engines. And so that's a 90 F82. And if you look really with a magnifying glass, you can read the class of the tender and so forth. And the flat spot in the back of the tender here, that's where you put the engine number it's assigned to once you paint the tender. So the tender now, the body is just about complete. Next one, Chris.
No, it looks fantastic. Just looking at that right photo, I can't believe the realism and the headlight and your data plate there and the markers. Holy mackerel, that's a lot. All right, yes.
Okay. And we've blown it up even more.
Yep.
So now you really get to see, and if you look carefully, you can read it has both the serial number of the tender along with the class of the tender on that. So now I've got everything pretty well soldered in. And to give you some perspective, if you look at that junction box on that bracket, that came from an engine that was going to be produced by a company called Sunnyside back in the 80s in Japan. And the builder went bankrupt. And a fellow fortunately got the parts that were left from the project into the States. And so he had a collection of the parts. So I went and bought a number of those parts. So that was supposed to go on an H10 that was going to be produced to a very high level of fidelity. So that's how you get those unusual kind of parts. So that's where they came from. And you can see my clamps now and all the other kinds of things that I put on. So, and the brackets, the hatch looks nice. So we're really coming towards the home stretch. Next. All right, now I took my Tamiya rattle can primer and I did a first shot around the back deck just to look it over to make sure everything looked okay. And then I went ahead and shot the complete body. So now you begin to see the body of the tender is really a nice body for a model that was done in 1975. And so it really will look well when it's painted. And with the additional details, such as the lift ring and stuff, which is starting to pop out because of the primer, it's going to be a really nice looking tender. And when I do Jim's lettering job on the side, it'll really bring it home. So the next two, I guess.
Yeah, I was just thinking before we move on, we really place a lot of emphasis on how great the locomotive looks, but we don't generally think much about the tender.
Yep.
And you just brought that out. I mean, this tender is going to be a showpiece all in itself.
Yep.
It really sets up well. That's the doghouse in the interior of the doghouse comes from Overland. They brought out an M1A and an M1B around 1985, 86, and it had a steel doghouse, small one, not the modern doghouse. And so they had some extra parts and they put them out on the market. So I bought several of them. And so that's where that comes from. And that's what mounts on the back deck of the tender. The thing I'm going to have to put on the tender once I mount it up there, there's a water line that comes up from the engine, a steam line that goes back through the tender, up through the drain, into the doghouse to heat the brakeman in the winter. And then there's a drain line on the other side that goes in the opposite course back to the other drain on the other side and drains the condensate out onto the track. So, and if you look above in the picture, now you can see the lift rings up there and the spider drains, everything sort of shows up. There's also a retainer up here that hooks into the hatch for the water. That's when they flip it up, that retainer holds the hatch in the upright position so it doesn't flap over onto the deck. And then the fireman can easily flip it back and closed. So this tender will be dark locomotive green enamel for the body, and then the deck of the tender and the cold space will be sort of a caboose red color that you typically you weather up as you finish the model.
All right.
So, and I've got it as you, there you go. Now you can see, as you say, Chris, you really see all the details on the back, and it really does add a lot to the model. In fact, as you see pictures of the engine going by, they typically had a broom stuck in between these two grabs where the brakeman could take the broom out and sweep the cinders away from where he's walking around back there. So I have some castings of a broom that I'll paint and finish and drop it down in there too to add to the character of the engine. And now you also see that lift ring I was telling you about. You got the lift loops here and so forth. So it really, there's so much to see, and you wouldn't think about that, as you say, on the back of a tender.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Fantastic.
Did you have any trouble soldering onto that old brass?
No, I made a thin veneer, and also it's only about a 10,000th piece of brass. And then I had a thin skin of solder that I had put on it to put up against it. And then I hit it in different spots with my resistance soldering unit. And then on the top of that sheet, I have some small, from Special Shapes, it's very small, 1/32 L, brass L. And then I put that along the top, which covers the seam between the two sheets, and also gives me a flat a piece that would indicate where the railroad would have had a reinforcing piece of bracket to reinforce the top of the sheet. So it all fit very well. You can see that going over the top.
Does that hatch operate?
No, it's a solid casting.
No, but does it lift at all or does it stay there?
No, as I say, it's a one-piece solid casting, just stays.
Oh, okay.
I just put the appurtenances on as if it was an operating hatch.
Jim, when I look at this, I look at those brackets holding on the electric conduits. I wouldn't be surprised if you have actual scale bolts holding those on.
Yeah. Sometimes when my eyes hurt, I think the same thing.
That's beautiful work.
Well, Jim, I'm good. I was going to send you an email. I'm going to get this thing painted, and I'm hoping that in January, whenever you want, we could schedule a slideshow of me putting on the dry transfers. There'll be lettering will run from about a foot in on this end to a foot in on that end, with the Pennsylvania spelled out, because in 1938 they changed to the much longer font. And I'm modeling 1956.
You know, if you're not careful, you're going to have a whole new contest entry called cabooses.
Wow. All right. Are there any questions for Jim?
Great job, Jim.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Unreal. Wow. All righty. Well, thanks, Jim, and have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week.
And a happy Thanksgiving to everybody as well.
Rich, you up, Rich? Actually, I know you're up. You just texted me.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep. We got you.
Go for it.
All right. Looks like you've got 3 slides tonight. I consolidated a few of them.
Okay, what you're looking at here is everyone thinks this is a kit, but it's not. This is scratch built HO scale, fine scale miniatures Sewell's Foundry. Now that middle building with the 3 posts that looks like everybody else's kit is made of Hydrocal. I took an original kit, made my own molds because I don't like painting the metal. And I wanted to use Tom Yorkey's method of painting stones using Floquil driftwood stain in different shades. First, you use an unshaken bottle, and then you stir it after that first original stain dries, and put on another layer. You have to wait till that dries, and then you shake your bottle and put on another layer. And then you want to use Floquil stains, teak, mahogany, and walnut. Now I followed his directions because I liked the way it came out. And I changed the original configuration of the way other people built their models by moving the buildings so that they were in a longer area, because this is part of a ongoing, currently constructed diorama that will have 3 major building complexes on it, and it is being currently constructed in 2 other areas. I won't have to go into those in total detail, but if you are still a member of the Railroad Line Forum, there's a thread over there called "A Few Buildings on the Edge of Nowhere." Now that is still being constructed, and this first structure I got finished, but I started this on Thanksgiving of 2021, and I just completed it this week. There's a lot of guys that were involved in watching me build this, but they sort of gave up hope seeing the final results because I didn't get it done till this week. But Fine Scale Miniatures Sewell's Foundry kit came out in May of 1982. And if you're lucky enough to get one on the secondary market, you're looking at around $500 for a kit. So that's a good reason why you should maybe scratch build your own. But
Nice model.
I wanted to make sure that the stoneware or the stone walls were seen, is another reason why I changed the position of the other 2 structures that go with this, so that the walls are not covered up. They're too nice to cover up. That little dormer building on the front, on the main structure where the 3 posts are, in my haste, when I put that on the roof, most generally people put it on the other side of the roof, but I glued it on there thinking, okay, great, I got that done. And then I realized later that I glued it to the wrong side, but I actually like it on that side better.
Yeah, I did the same thing with with the old Weimer's grist mill kit. I built the roof completely, and then I put it on, and it was like, oh nuts! It's backwards. It doesn't. It's funny because if you look at it, it doesn't make any sense. But
well, the shingles,
it does.
the shingles on that main structure are actually Paper Creek shingles, and I saved those for this special project because those are no longer made, and they are the dark brown ones. I didn't really like them dark brown, so I took Pan Pastels burnt umber tint, which is a light whitish stone color pan pastel, and put some of that on there. But you don't want to go too heavily with that because you start it with your brush and then it gets stuck in one spot and then you can't get it off. But I like using pan pastels because if you don't like it after you have it on there, you can take an eraser and it erases right off. I don't have any step-by-step photos of this because of the fact that it started 2 years ago and I had a couple computer crashes in between, and I looked all day today for more photos and I only found like 2. So do you have another slide?
Sure do.
Okay, that one on the lower right bottom, I actually have a small roof over that one freight door to the right. I couldn't put it on the other side because the post was in the middle of the stairs. That tall stack that's painted brown is actually a plastic piece of a July 4th fireworks. I picked those up out of the yard and I thought, hey, what the heck? That would make some nice HO stacks. So I saved a few. And it's plastic, so you can drill a hole in it quite easily to put your brass rod for supports on that.
Nice.
And I bought the 2 vents from Railroad Kits.
Yep.
And that's tar paper on the red one and the gray one.
Great job, Rich.
Thank you.
It's really nice.
Like I said, this is being built in 2 other places, and the other place is John Seekirk's Superior and Seattle Interchange Gazette newsletter. Now, Chris Course and I were building together, but Chris is still ill. And I'm sorry to mention that on here right now, but we all hope that he has a speedy recovery. He had surgery again this week, but he's not faring too well. That's all I got to say about that.
Oh, Chris Blackmore?
Yes.
Oh, you said me. I was like, wait a minute, I'm not sick.
No, Chris Blackmore, sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we need to keep him in our thoughts. All right. Okay. Looks like this is the last photo on that set.
Okay. Well, I scratch built those freight doors. The other thing is, even if you were using the metal for the main structure in the center from the kit, you see how those doors are a lot shorter than the regular man door that's there? That man door is 7 foot tall. Now those freight doors only measure 6 foot. That made me want to put a roof over the right one because it takes your eyes off the smallness of the freight doors. So you're not, seeing that discrepancy. But when George made that kit, you're stuck with the openings when you're using metal walls. I wasn't in its sense because it's plaster, but I didn't want to scrape it and then have to put in my own door brace at the top. So I just left it the way it was. So those doors end up being smaller than normal freight door size.
Yeah, that's the rock work on there is incredible. If you didn't know any better, you'd swear that was real.
Well, when I painted that using that flow quill stain, I really liked the way it turned out because the driftwood makes the gray colors, and you don't want to go over tremendously with walnut because the walnut's really dark. So I used less of that and less of the mahogany, but the teak I used mostly and did various stones. So you're not blending it all in like in one. And then some stones are gray and brown mixed together. I wanted an overall really light brown, and that's the way it turned out. And on the corners, to cover up the crevices where people normally put like extra vines and scenery, I made a slurry using the hydrocal plaster powder and water and filled in the corners with a brush. And I like not coloring walls until you get it glued together because you can have a better color uniformity going around the corner versus you paint one wall and then paint another wall and then glue it together and then they don't match when you go around the corner. Now this, like I mentioned, I don't want to go over my time, but I did mention that this is 1/3 of a diorama I'm currently constructing. Now the other building's going to be a mill with a water wheel and a river, and then on the other side of that is going to be the model that Jason Jensen built a year or so ago. That was the tribute to George Sellios, Tool and Die. That's going to be on the other corner. Jason gave me permission to scratch build it.
Yeah, mill you're talking about, is that the one I sent you like 4 years ago?
No, it's not, because your mill is kind of short and I need to put that on a diorama where I have a long view so that it doesn't look out of place with other structures like this one.
Yeah.
But I like that mill. I do have it done.
Oh.
I just
Well,
don't have
thanks.
I don't have the trough built.
Oh, okay. The sluiceway, yeah.
We'll get that one of these days.
Alrighty. Well, we look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
So anyway, thanks for sharing, Rich. Are there any questions for Rich?
I really like the rock work you did there, Rich, and I want to thank you for sharing the staining tips. I'm going to try that.
Another thing I'd like to tell you, Greg, if you're listening, is that brown paper I sent you. When I build a hydrocal structure like this one, I also fortify the insides, and I glued on that paper on the inside to help. It helps to keep it square, and it makes it rigid, so it's less brittle. So if you go to glue that together and you're clamping it, say, it won't break as easily as it did if it didn't have anything to help the walls on the inside. So, and you don't see mine because I glued my roof on, and it won't have any lights in it. But I, if I wanted to light this, I still could drill up from the bottom side.
Yeah, I've used a couple sheets of that paper for various projects. It's nice stuff.
It makes a good roof too.
I think that's one of the things I used it for.
Now I have to send everybody a sample. That building on the left is old aged clapboard like George used in his kits. And the building on the right is board and batten.
All righty.
That's all. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for having me on here.
All righty. Any more questions for Rich?
Thank you for coming, Rich. It's beautiful work.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, thanks again for sharing, Rich, and have a happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you next week.